Peace, peace, peace. It is unapologetically QI entering the building. All right. Well, let me start by saying this. Um, so the other day I was over supporting VS and listening to, what she was saying, and I got triggered. As I've often told a lot of people, I have PTSD. And I've also often said as well that I go into flight mode. Some is fight or flight. I go into fight mode. That is why like I try to exercise coping skills. Before I get to that point. And however, in the midst of it, I have to understand that I'm in the midst of it in order to be able to control myself. So I went into fight mode because let me start with the day or 2 days before when ZX or knowing that ZX had passed around someone nudes, and then hearing all of those people up there uh just talk under a woman's body parts under her clothes. As I stated before, it's like, although you are probably saying that to one person, there are a lot of people out there that have probably experienced things, and sometimes you don't never know who you're triggering. That was predatorial, very predatorial. It was not good behavior, especially towards women, especially for men, to do that, especially for women to do that. Because women definitely shouldn't do that, because you should not want anybody to do that to you. But, so that had triggered me deeply to the point where, I was just basically, letting DX know, like, that was predatory. That was basically revenge P. And that was bad behavior, especially for someone of his age, But at any rate, so I'm still like trying to regain myself from that. And pretty much, when I think back to that experience, or think back to when I was listening to the video, because I got triggered or listening to the live, I got triggered in the midst of it, looking back. Because as she was sitting there modding up ZX, modding up Shakim, modding up Audio, I don't know if J Dunn was really on the panel or not, but all I can envision was J Dunn. And then I also envision Queen Tulsa. Now I know Tulsa, she pokes bears. But here's the thing. When ZX says all of those things about J Dunn, it's just like saying them to me. It's no different from saying that to me or any other lesbian. And I noticed that, like, a lot of men, they have issues with lesbians, especially the dominant ones. Like, they don't have issues with the ones who are more like on the feminine side. They have issues with the ones who are masculine identified. And so just like with Jay Dunn, I have faced my own um harassment, discrimination, and different things, men talking under my clothes and thinking that it's funny as a drag or something. And that's predatory. It's very inappropriate. And it really shows a lot about that man, because especially if you got a daughter, especially if you have a niece, especially if you had, like, if there's any woman in your family that, or a little girl in your family that you care about, you should definitely think about, that's not the type of behavior that you want to normalize, because your niece, your grandchildren, like, if you normalize that type of behavior, um then your niece, your granddaughter, or like somebody that you care about could face that, because you're making that type of predatory behavior normal within the Black community. And we already have enough, black, like enough issues that we need to confront and face, especially when it deals with how we relate to one another, us getting along, and the fact that, like we're our greatest enemies at this point. And so that we need to, like, before we can talk about anybody else and how anybody else treats us or what anybody else feels about us, we need to first look at how we feel about ourselves as an individual, which is a projection of how we treat each other. Because a lot of issues stem from a lot of the facts that people need healing within themselves, all of us. And so I like to, apologize not for to VS, Bree, and Pizza, not for my message, but shout out to Bush Baby because yesterday on my live, which I ended because I realized that I need to regather, myself. Um, Shout out to Bush Baby because, like, I shouldn't have called them. I shouldn't have said. I didn't call them stupid, dumb. I was like, y'all look stupid, dumb, and weak. And so I apologize for saying those things because I could have delivered my message better. But as I stated, like, it was like I went from 1 to 10, and I shouldn't have hit that live button. I should have gathered my thoughts. I should have gathered my emotions and all of those different things before I hit that live button, but I didn't. So, I just basically hit the live button and it was on. Cause when I get in flight mode, it's like I've already put on my camouflage, and it's like I'm ready for war. So I could have did better about that, and I apologize for like my delivery. I did not mean to be offensive that way. But at any rate, the next thing I want to talk about is Reed. So after that live, I sort of like I realized, look, I need to log off. So I logged off for a little. I logged off. I went and took me a little nap, and so I woke up a little bit last night, caught Cly's live, and so that's how I sort of concluded what may have taken place while I was asleep. And but in at any rate, I saw where Reed had did a live. And so, I went to check out Reed's to see, like what may have transpired. And here's the thing, Reed. Me and Reed, okay, or here's the thing. Yeah, this is to Reed. Like, because me and Reed have a mutual friend, right? And I'm just loyal to all aspects, right? I'm just loyal. I'm a Leo, so I'm loyal. All right. So I've often known that Reed didn't necessarily care for me, but because of my mutual friend or whatever, like I was like, I'm not gonna, just really be reactionary to that. I'm just gonna keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? And I may have responded to her like in a comment, once or twice or whatever, but like never wanting to go to battle or to war. And I still don't really want to go to battle or war. But basically, this is what I need to tell Reed. Reed, please stop every time that you get into a situation with VS, inserting me. I have nothing at all to do with that, and nothing at all to do with that. Stop inserting it. And Reed, also, like, I do realize people come from certain religious backgrounds and stuff like that that teaches them, like, gives them a standard or viewpoint on women, even though they might say I'm a girl's girl. A lot of y'all still have viewpoints on women. You don't look at women as being as valuable as a man. You look at women as though they should be subservient. And I want to just say, like, we're in a space where this is a people from all over the world, all walks of life, all religions, and some spiritual backgrounds. So everybody does not feel that way. So stop assuming that, and then stop assuming that y'all are gonna make people change their mind or make people think or believe the same way that you do because you feel that way. But I have to say shout out to Spiller Boy because like there was a time when they were about to do that women empowerment, Jada and VS, and Spiller Boy said something. And you know, which, you know, it brought, you know, it shined a light on something for me, and I appreciate him for that. And it's not no butt kissing or nothing like that, you know. But Spilly Boy said, you know, these bees are homophobic. And so, you know, like that, like I had never looked at that, you know, like the reason why a lot of people, like the reason why, like, I get a lot of the treatment that I do and different things of that nature, because a lot of people are homophobic. And not just that, not just homophobic, but women can be misogynist as well. So a lot of women are homophobic and misogynist, which means that, you know, they'll you know, accept and respect a gay man, a man, but um they don't really accept or respect, you know, a woman, like us, you know, a lesbian, or women, for women at all, because, you know, y'all got to keep in mind that lesbian studs, we're still women, right? So they view us as women, just like, for instance, you know, trans women, a lot of times they're viewed as women too, bottoms, that power bottom, you know. That's why that's looked at so bad or derogatorily, because, you know, they, like, a lot of people view femininity or view women, you know, like being a woman, as bad. And you know, women does too. Like, men, a lot of men can't respect, like Lemon, you know, he has like a smaller view. He does not view women as equal to him, you know. He doesn't. And so, like, he would never let a woman outpower him. Now, he might make you feel like he will do it, or make you feel like this or that, but that's only until he can regain his dominance, you know. And for the most part, Lemon is not going to let anybody else, because, you know, he's a self-admitted narcissist. So he's not going to let anybody else be dominant over him. He has to be top dog, number one, and he will do whatever it takes, and he knows how to play the game to get the results that he wants. And, you know, whether it's the long game or the short game, it generally works. It generally works because people are not aware of that. People are not aware of what he's doing. And he's very manipulative and strategic. And I don't hate Lemon at all. You know, like, I don't like Lemon's behavior, and Lemon knows this. Like, you know, Lemon knows this. But, like, and I'm like upset at Lemon behind something that he, like, but behind, you know, like something that he did to me. And I don't like the fact that he disrespects women or the LGBTQIA community. But, you know, one of the things that I realized in the process of being upset is that, especially when he admitted to being a self-admitted narcissist, that, you know, whereas a regular person or somebody who's not a narcissist, you know, will, you know, realize, you know, that they did something wrong, they made a mistake or whatever, and then they would face their accountability and apologize for their behavior. Someone that's a narcissist won't, because narcissists look at things like, they look at, it's like a power dynamic or whatever. They look at apologizing, and they look at, you know, being human, or they look at being accountable as weak. And they don't realize that that is really where the strength lies. To be able to say that you know, realize that you made a mistake, to be able to, you know, that's grown woman, grown man stuff. To be able to admit where you did wrong and to be able to apologize, that's grown man or grown woman stuff. That is the type of stuff that we should teach our children. Not to do wrong and to, like, blame somebody else, or not to do wrong and, you know, and not ever, like, want to face accountability for what you did wrong. Because sometimes all it takes is an apology, or all it takes is acknowledgement of the fact that you knew, that you know you did wrong. But at any rate, Reed, look, I'm not here to care about, because one, this is the thing, like, I do know that, you know, misogynistic women or whatever. I do know, like, and, you know, maybe homophobic women. I do know, like, that Y'all don't understand. First of all, y'all don't understand our lifestyle, the lesbian lifestyle, especially the dominant lesbian lifestyle, and especially we have several different like generations. Just like you got generations in the real world, when it comes down to our lifestyle, the LGBTQIA lifestyle, you got generations, and every generation is not the same, whatever. But needless to say, like the way I look, a lot of women like a lot of the women that I like, they like the way that I look. They want a masculine looking, lesbian or stud. So I have never had any problems at all. And most of the women that I've dated have been beautiful, including the one that I'm currently with. So, I've never had like, that's why it's hard for me to, because I'm like, yeah, I'm in my 50s. So it's hard for me to like when these people be trying to intimidate or whatever, like say derogatory things about you. It's hard for me to engulf that because like I've experienced my if I were younger, it might have been more effective, but I'm not younger. I have experienced life. I'm experienced. Therefore, like you can't tell somebody who, because like for what most people say in my real life, it's totally different. And a lot of times it's like I laugh and it's strange. It's like this stuff is strange, but it's funny. That's why I tried to do that lesbian panel. To because like in terms of the gay men and stuff, they had like they always have a voice. They have a voice, but in terms of lesbians, look around. Lesbians are stifled, especially in this community. Stifled, and then like it's so much discrimination and stuff. It's hard for us to even have a voice because just like for instance with me, I know I'm a proud lesbian, proud stud, but here's the thing, that's not the only thing about me. And then that's not what I prefer a person look at me first as. I prefer that them look at me for who I am because I do have my own personality, I do have my own character, and I am QI at the end of the day. So figure out who QI really is and not listen to somebody who put me in a robot or a box, or who's looking at me from some type of programmed, systematic type of way. I'm a person, I'm a spiritual person. So I really exercise, being, my natural self and being who I am. And also, I'm not even attracted to, like like most of the women that I've dated, they're beautiful, but I am um, a a sapiosexual. Like I am attracted to a person's mind, a person's character, a person's personality. Like I don't want somebody who looks good and I can't have a conversation with them. I don't want somebody who looks good but they're boring. I don't want somebody who's vain. All it's all about looks and all about I don't want that. I like a relationship where we can relate to each other. We can communicate with each other. So I'm different. And I do understand a lot of people don't understand that component of a relationship. And that's why a lot of relationships and marriages and stuff don't work out because a lot of people base things on just physicalness, on just physical attributes and not what really matters, the context of character and who that person really is, whether or not y'all are compatible, that kind of stuff. But I look at all of that kind of stuff, when I'm getting to know somebody or dating somebody or even in a relationship, and I'm quick to like if because I don't want to wake up every day. I'm not one that want to wake up every day and be miserable. I don't want to wake up every day and be arguing. You know, I don't want to wake up every day and especially as a stud, the dominant or the masculine, I don't want to wake up every day and it's all about them and they do nothing for me or we don't, we are not mutually loving each other, respecting each other, giving to each other and providing for each other. So there you go on that. And so, read like, man, please stop inserting me into, like your situations with VS. Please, respectfully, I ask. All right. So the last thing that I'm gonna talk about is the Cly and the Lemon situation, which I already sort of explained. That also triggered me because I've been supporting Cly for a long time. Cly is super funny. She's intelligent. She's very intelligent. Um, like I said, I like her. I like her. I like her character. Like she's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But the biggest reason I like to support Clyde and I like her content is because of the fact that she's funny. Because I come on here if I'm not trying to learn something, this is really a noise box for me. While I'm doing other things or whatever, I like to listen to stuff. And unfortunately, when you watch TV or whatever, the program lasts 30 minutes, maybe an hour, then you got to find something else. Well, with YouTube, a lot of times because, the panels or because this, that, and the other, a lot of stuff lasts, for a couple of hours. So you're not consistently having to find something to watch or whatever. So YouTube works for me. I cancel my cable. But, and that's one of the things that, is a little upsetting. And I'm not just talking about within the B sector. I'm talking about in a lot of sectors. Things get redundant. It's like people are just wash rinsing in all sectors and areas that I've pretty much been into. And then even when sometimes I try to drift into newer areas, it's wash, rinse, repeat. It's like not a lot of creativity, not a lot of, new stuff taking place. It's not, and I have ADHD, so like I have if it's I can't do the redundancy. It bores me and it bores me and I can't take it. I have to do something else or find another way to occupy myself or something like that. Occupy my mind or whatever. And generally I do more than one thing at a time. I guess that's a coping mechanism or whatever. I generally like I have to listen to this while I'm doing that, and then I could be uh hmm, I could be working on a project, cleaning the house and listening to YouTube at the same time. So that gives you an example. But at any rate, like I just saw Lemon, Clyde has never wanted to go be a part of B sector. In fact, she's always one that just stays in her own little zone. And Lemon had been coming over to Clyde's, and it was funny. Like it was funny or whatever. So I'm just like, I told Clyde, I was like, let's keep this going because this is good content or whatever. So they just started. Clyde started going over to Lemon's panel, a lot more often, and it worked because the things that that I don't like about him about like disrespecting women and LGBTQIA community and just a lot of the toxicity, Clyde balanced him off. And so it was a balanced, it was funny, it was in, very, it wasn't boring. But it was exactly the right type of mix. And so, I just hate that. I hate what happened. I didn't like what happened. And it was all ZX. ZX was pretty much mad because, Clyde, like because it was working for Clyde and Lemon. And ZX is a selfish, predatorial, he wants to control, you know, uh person. And that's what's irritating about him too. Is one thing, just like if he's on one panel, okay, I don't want to hear you. I could turn off that panel. But if he's on every panel, it's like y'all trying to MK Ultra me, y'all trying to brainwash me, y'all trying to and it's like other people have a right to be here too. A lot of people don't like being talked to like that. A lot of people don't like being treated that way. So content creators have got to start looking at subscribers and stop looking at it like they can control, dictate, and it's not about the subscribers. And subscribers, y'all have to know that y'all are supporting the content creators. So like y'all have to let them know that this type of behavior is not good. We come to support you. And in supporting you, we don't want to be mistreated. We don't want to be degraded. We don't want to be talked down onto. We don't want to be, we don't want to have to see all this toxic, behavior. So that was pretty much my point. And like I said, I just want to come and, now that I gathered myself and got myself together, explain in a more tactful way and in the right way. Because like I said, I apologize to VS Bree, not for my message, but the fact that, I shouldn't have said those things. I was triggered, I was upset, I couldn't find, all of my right vocabulary and words, and I know better. I know better. And like, I'm gonna do better. That's not me. But at any rate, I appreciate everybody who came out and supported me as always. Salute to Dovey. Oh, look at my girl Heels up in the building. Long time Heels. But salute to Dovey and Hughes up in that building. Y'all smash that like button. I'm trying to get an analytics. And let me speak real quickly. I have been working on this FBA content, but as I did further research to get ready to actually deliver everything, I realized some things. So I'm gonna put that off because I'm a true tribal indigenous American Indian, and although I do know we need to ally and do things on a more collective front, what I mean is, like, there are different tribes and stuff like that. My tribe does its part. So, I'm gonna be tribal first, because that's my government. But we do need to find a way to collectively do things. So, the closest that, I have seen is FBA, because FBA, like, I've been listening to all of Tariq's debates and stuff. And so far, a lot of them were impressive. I'm like, okay, okay, okay. But then, like, after doing further research, I realized there was some things that, like, that I don't want to back. I don't want to back. So I decided to just prolong that content, because I'm about my ancestors and my bloodline first. So at any rate, I'm gonna just put that off, but I am gonna start coming with some more content. I'm just, at this time, I can wear multiple hats. I'm diverse, and I'm just, like, really cautious because, I'm trying to basically rebrand or brand my channel. So I'm very cautious about the content that I do. And at the same time, like I said, I got ADHD and stuff. So I know that, like, it has to be like, I gotta go in a direction in terms of, like, when I get up every day, or when it's got to motivate me, make me love hitting a live button, or make me love doing the content, and not eventually fall into, like, boredom, boredom or whatever. So I appreciate everybody. Y'all hit that, smash that like button, hit that like button, and peace, love, and hair grease to all. And QI is exiting the building. I'm out. Peace.